Welcome to Your Time to Shine with your host, Carmen Ring.
Imagine how easy would it be to get your name in the media if the reporters of well-known publications would be looking for you instead of you looking for them. This is what my guest from today does for his clients.
Well, thank you very much, Carmen. It's a pleasure to be here.
Why don't we start by telling our listeners a little bit about you, your background, your story, and how you got to do what you're doing today?
Sure, that's a great place to start. When I was a little kid, really, even in elementary school, I wanted to be the great American playwright. So I thought I'd go to journalism school and learn how to become a reporter so I'd get great stories. So I did. I went to Northwestern University and I became a newspaper reporter, but the stories weren't so great. They were city council meetings and they talked about garbage rates and city council matters and stuff, and frankly, it was really pretty boring. So I went into publicity, and it was at a good time, too, because I worked with many of the startup computer companies back in the early 1980s. I was on the PR team that launched America Online. I wrote one of the first books, if not the first book, about marketing on the Internet, and that has led to all sorts of speaking engagements literally around the world, and it also led me to start my company, PR Leads, which helps put experts and small businesses in touch with reporters who are writing articles. So one thing just led to another, and here we are today.
Thank you so for sharing your expertise with us, your background. Now, if we're talking about an entrepreneur or a small company that has never, ever been featured in the media, but they would like to take this step, what are the first few things they can do to move in this direction?
That's a great place to start. And there are really two things you need to do. Number one, you need to figure out what your story is. You know, what do you want the world to know about you? How do you want to be seen? How do you want to be positioned? What do you want to think to come into people's minds when they think about your company? And the second, what do reporters want to write about? Because those might not be the same things. So you want to tell one story, but the reporters might want a different story. So you have to think like a reporter and think about what they write about, what they think their audience is interested in, and where that point of intersection lies, that's where you become a reporter's best friend and they want to write about you. For example, let's say you're a realtor and you want the local newspaper to say you're the best realtor in town. Well, they're not. There are a lot of realtors in town, and they don't want to risk offending the other realtors or dentists or whatever you happen to be. That's not what they're in business to do. What they're in business to do is to help their readers become smarter, more well-informed, more well-rounded, and lead happier, healthier lives. So how can we intersect the two? Well, every month, the U.S. government comes out with housing starts and reports about housing trends and the price of houses and occupancy rates and all those other things. And you know what? Reporters write about those stories every single month. It's like clockwork. Well, they need to talk to someone local to get the local angle, to find out what's happening on the local scene. You could become that local resource. Now, I just talked about realtors, but it could be dentists. It could be educators, it could be small business owners, it could be anything. So everyone who's listening here, think about it. What kinds of stories appear in the newspaper every single day or week or month that you, when you read them, you say, why did they interview my competitor? Why didn't they interview me? I could have been in that story. And the reason they interviewed your competitor is because your competitor picked up the phone and made a phone call and said, hey, if you're ever doing a story about whatever, then call me. I'd be happy to help. And reporters are lazy. They will take the path of least resistance. So if you call a reporter and say, hey, the next time you're working on a story about real estate rates or housing rates or teen addiction or starting a new business or paying taxes, call me. I'll be happy to help. Chances are they'd be more than happy to call you.
Thank you for sharing this approach. What I'm getting from this is that we don't necessarily have to contact the media, like I want to be featured next week and I'm contacting the media today. It's also putting something out there for the future.
That's absolutely right. And we call this the editorial calendar approach. That's because every newspaper or magazine works off of an editorial calendar to some degree. And many people listening on this call probably have a social media calendar where they know that every week or every month they're going to be writing about a certain thing. It follows the same principle. For example, every December, magazines and newspapers write about New Year's resolutions and why people can't keep them. So if you're a psychologist, that's a great entry point for you to talk about why people set goals and why they can't keep goals. And if you're a personal trainer or in the fitness industry, this is a great way to latch on to that kind of story. In February, Valentine's Day, so everyone's writing about love. Well, let's say you're a relationship expert, that's pretty easy. But you could also say, why do people love their jobs or don't love their jobs? So if you're an HR consultant, that would be a great opportunity for you to latch on to a story that you know the reporters are going to be writing about anyway, and they're always looking for new angles. So if you can think about what reporters are going to be writing about, then you can get into those stories. In fact, on a lot of websites, on a lot of media websites, you'll actually see their editorial calendars. That happens more for, say, magazines and newspapers, but newspapers do it too. So if you go to the newspaper magazine site and look for their editorial calendar, you might find when they're actually going to be writing about their wedding issue or their back to school issue or their technology issue, and then you can latch onto those stories.
And then you said that we can just get the phone and make a phone call to the reporters. Is there a strategy to approach them, like what to say, how to hook them, or maybe send an email first? What's your strategy on that?
Great. I'm glad you called me on that when I said call. Reporters are actually screening most of their calls these days. So when we say call, we're probably talking about leaving a voicemail for them. But I also endorse the idea of sending an email too. Let's talk about both of those strategies. Now, the number one thing you have to remember is that everyone has a short attention span these days. And frankly, most reporters are looking at a mobile device when they're reading their emails and such. You know, most people are today anyway. Reporters are no different. And anything you write looks long on a very small handheld phone. So you want to keep it short. So when I say short, I mean 5 or 6 sentences. And you want to be totally focused on their needs. So you might start off by saying, your readers are concerned about topic X. It could be how to have white teeth. It could be how to raise healthier kids. It could be how to reduce student debt, whatever. Well, I happen to be an expert on that topic. I've written a book, or I've had X number of years of consulting, or I have a number of clients who are involved in this, and I can offer your readers 5 tips on how to reduce student debt. Please call me or email me, and you give their contact information. So it's that simple. Of course, you can include your email address as part of it, and also your website address, so they can check you out, because they want to make sure that you are as good as you say you are. So that would be it for an email pitch. If you do a phone pitch, chances are you're not going to reach a reporter because they don't pick up their phone anymore. I'm sure a lot of your listeners don't pick up the phone either. I'm always checking my caller ID because there are just so many scams that come across my phone. So the answering machine really becomes a screening device. So you might use the same format that I just said for an email, but you leave it as the phone pitch. So it's like, hi, I know your readers are interested in X. I'm an expert on topic X. I can help your readers solve this problem with 5 tips. Please call me. Please email me. You know, you have a call to action there. And if they're interested, they'll get back in touch with you. If they do pick up the phone, which could happen, the first thing you want to say is a little bit different because reporters are on deadline. They're always busy. You want to respect that etiquette. So the first thing you'd say is, I have a story pitch. Do you have 30 seconds right now, or are you on deadline? And they would say, oh, I'm on deadline. Then you'd say, okay, when can I call you? And they'd say, oh, after 3 o'clock. And they'd say, fine, thank you very much. I'll call you back then. And that's cool. That shows that you respect the way they work. It shows that you know how they work, and it makes you sound like an insider.
Thank you so much for the on-the-point advice. This is very practical and very applicable right away advice. Thank you so much. Can you tell us a little bit about what an online press room is and what makes it great? How can we build something great?
Sure. An online press room is actually part of your website. Now, there are companies that do online press kits that are hosted on their site, but I'm not quite sure why that part of the industry took off, because you can easily have an online press kit on your own website. So you basically have a tab off of your front page that says Online Press Room or Online Media Center, because a lot of the electronic media don't like the word press because they think it refers to a printing press, instead of and electronic media doesn't use a printing press. They use electrons. They use television. They use podcasting. So they have their little peccadillos there. So you call it a media center. And in that media center, you have the basic information that reporters would want. For example, pictures of yourself or your company or your product. And these would be high-resolution pictures that reporters could download without you even knowing about it. So if they're working on a story at 2 in the morning, they don't have to call you and wake you or wait for you to respond to them. They can immediately go there and get the information they need. So you should also have your contact information. And when I say contact information, I mean your direct phone number, your cell phone number. I see so many people make this mistake. They'll have their main phone number, and that puts reporters in voicemail jail. You know, dial 1 for an operator, dial 2 if you want security, dial 3 if you want customer support, dial 4 if this, well, they have to listen to 7 or 8 different options before they get to, if you want Carmen, press 9. Well, no, we don't want that. Just in your email or your voicemail or on your online website, you would say, to reach Carmen, here's the phone number, and dial extension 9. So that way reporters can get to you quickly. Now, there are other things that make an online press kit wonderful. One of them are articles that you've written. Another is articles that have been written about you. This shows the media that if you're good enough for these other media outlets, then you must be good enough for me. So you could either put links to those media sites where you've been quoted, or you can reprint the articles if you have permission, and that's fine. Another thing you can do is to put story ideas there. Like you can interview me about topics like internet marketing, crisis communications, how to deliver a speech, how to reach reporters, search engine optimization, Facebook advertising, whatever. This lets reporters know that you offer a wide range of services. And to make it even better, you might have 10 questions the reporter could ask you about those topics. Because remember, they're not the experts, you are. They don't know the kinds of questions to ask. You do. Plus, if you line up the questions, then it really positions you as an expert because they're going to be asking you questions that you know the answers to, and it's going to be highlighting one of the key services that you offer. So let's say Facebook advertising. There are a lot of things about Facebook advertising. There are a lot of things about real estate or parenting or education or any topic that our listeners have. But you want them to focus on something that you are an expert in within that field. So by listing the questions, you're assured that they're going to be asking you things that will actually help position you and help you tell your story effectively.
And this is also coming back to making the work easy for them, so they're going to like you and come back to you over and over again, right?
Oh, definitely. And this works especially well for podcasters and for radio, because radio talk shows, they interview a lot of people, and the hosts really don't have time to read your book or do a lot of research. So if you can give them 10 questions, chances are they're going to ask you most of those questions. They're not going to come up with anything original, although they might have a conversation like we're having and go off on a tangent, but that's fine because you are pre-framing the conversation to go along the way that you want to go. So they will be your best friends if you give them questions and plant the conversation.
Wonderful. Dan, do you have a favorite media channel? Do you prefer newspapers, or do you recommend to start in a strategic way? What do you have to say about that?
That's a great question. I think it really depends on who you are and what you're trying to prove or where your audience happens to live. For example, well, I was going to say newspapers used to have a short shelf life because you get the newspaper delivered in the morning, you'd read it, you'd throw it out, and it was over. And if you copied the article, then you can use that forever. But nowadays, every newspaper is available online. So if someone is searching for you, they're going to find every newspaper article ever written about you. So that's good. So newspapers have a very, very long life these days. I think television is also very good for building credibility. If you're on a national show like the Today Show or Good Morning America, that's worth its weight in gold because people really respect those shows. So if you're, say, on Oprah or Ellen or Dr. Oz or The Doctor's Show, and something like that. You definitely want to have a link to that from your online press kit, and you might even blog about it. You might promote it on social media, and in that way you're promoting all this other media that's written about you. So television is great. Newspapers are great. I'm not such a big fan of radio because people listen to radio in the car and they really can't write down your name and your website, and they might forget that you exist half an hour later.
Yeah, they can't click on anything, no blue link.
Excuse me?
I said they can't click on anything, while when you go online, there's a blue link that goes to your website or to your name.
Exactly, exactly. There's more permanence to newspaper and television and YouTube, and you know the world is just going more and more towards social media. So I hesitate to say other video forms. So people really do react positively to video. And I think that's going to be the next big thing, because podcasts are big now, and then we're going to have video podcasts, and those are going to be indexed on Google, and people will be able to find you when they do search engine optimization, and they'll see you, and they'll just get a better feel for you because it uses more modalities. They can see you, they can hear your tone of voice, they can see how you look, how you dress, and then say, I'm just like her, I like her, I want to work with her. So the more senses you can use to build rapport, the better. So I think television and video podcasting or YouTube videos or Vimeo or wherever it evolves into, because I know people will be listening to this conversation 2 years from now and the landscape will change entirely. But video is always going to be good.
And now by saying this, you answered already part of my next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And that was, how can we make most out of the time or space we get with the media? Shall we say our story, or shall we talk more about our products, our past customers? What's the best use of time or space when we talk about media?
Well, when you get your media coverage, you have to remember that not everyone in the world is going to see this right away. I mean, no one reads every word on every page of the Wall Street Journal. I don't even think the editors of the Wall Street Journal read every word of every page. There's just so much going on and so many distractions. So even if you were quoted on page 3 of the Wall Street Journal today, there's a good chance that 99.9% of your customers and prospects won't ever see that because they don't have the time to read every single word. So my first big tip on what to do to maximize your media exposure is really quite simple. And frankly, the world is a really simple place. Too many people make it sound too complicated, and they charge really ridiculously high rates because they scare you and they think you can't do it yourself, but you can do a lot of things yourself and they don't cost any money at all. So here's my number one tip, and it's going to sound so brain dead obvious, but many people don't do it. So the first thing you need to do, because people don't see your article or they weren't watching the Today Show or your local version of the Today Show, you need to tell your clients that you were on that show or that you were quoted in that publication. So you'd use email and you'd use social media to say, hey, we were honored to be quoted in the newspaper today. Here's the link. And now all of your customers say, wow, she really must be the best realtor in town, or she really must be the best dentist in town because she's quoted in the media. This is great. Now, what does this do for you on sales? Because it's all about sales. You know, publicity is great, but if it doesn't lead to sales, then, you know, what's the point? So here's why it's important for sales and making money. Your customers are one phone call or one email or one coupon away from ditching you and going to someone else. I mean, how many times have you in your own life gone to a different company because you had a competitor's coupon for dry cleaning or something else? So loyalty is very, very cheap these days. I hate to say it, but it really is true, and there are studies that show that. We think we are going above and beyond in giving our clients everything we can possibly give them, but if they can save $5 by going to someone else, they'll do it in a heartbeat. It breaks my heart, but it really does happen. So by sending the newspaper article or the link to your video or your podcast, like I'm going to do with this podcast, it gives me another reason to stay in touch with my customers so they don't forget who I am. And it also reinforces the idea that Dan must be really good because he was interviewed on this show or he appeared in this newspaper, so I'm glad to be working with the #1 thought leader in this field. This is really good. Now, that keeps your current client base. I would also send the article or the link to your prospects because, you know, your prospects are sitting on the fence, they're evaluating you and 5 or 6 other people, and they just can't make a decision because, you know, you all have very similar backgrounds, you're all saying the same things on your website, you're all promising the same things, so it's very hard for them to differentiate, even if you think you are incredibly better than anyone else. They don't see it that way. They need to see something in print that says, you know, you are really good. So if everyone has the same skill set, everyone's written a book, everyone's been to college, everyone has a degree, everyone has 5 years of experience, everyone has a certain client base, you all look the same. But you might stand out because you're the one who was quoted in the media. So that makes you stand out, and then they say, okay, I'm going to go with her because the media trusts and respects her. There must be something there. So that gives you another reason to stay in touch with your prospects and not be, you know, salesy and nudgy and say, do you want to buy my product? It's more like, hey, I was quoted in the media and I said some things that might help you. Here's the article or here's the link to the video. Let me know what you think. And that might be enough to push them over so they become clients. Now, there's a third group that I would send the article or the link to as well, and those are your former clients. And I say my former clients, you say, but they're not clients anymore. Why do I want to engage with them? Well, I have to tell you, I've been in business for 16 years with my PR Leads service, and we get clients coming back every single day. You know, they might take time off because they're having a baby, or they're taking care of a sick parent, or they're moving, or they write a book and then they promote the book and then they take time off to write their next book. You know, there are a lot of reasons for someone to become your client and then take some time off, and then they want to come back again. But, you know, by that time, they might have forgotten you exist, or there might have been more competitors out there. They might be checking you out again to see if you're still in business. And when you send them this article, this email that says, hey, we were quoted here, this gives them another reason for you to stay in touch with them and to remember that you're still alive. I think one of the best quotes I ever heard was from my friend Patricia Fripp, who was the first female president of the National Speakers Association, when she said, it is not your client's responsibility to remember that you are still in business. I'll repeat that again because it's really a writer-downer. It's not your client's responsibility to remember that you are still in business. So if you can send them a link to the media that is promoting you and your brand and your image, then you're staying in touch with your clients, your former clients, and your prospects in a very positive way that helps them and also helps you. So those are my that would be my #1 tip for what to do when you get media coverage. And of course, when I say email, I'm also including social media. So you put it out on Twitter, you put it out on Facebook, you put it out on YouTube, and any other social media platforms that your prospects, clients, and former clients use regularly.
And that makes total sense, Dan. Thank you so much for sharing this advice. Now, before I let you go, I know you have a surprise for our listeners, and I'm going to let you say a few words about that.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I do have a special gift for all of Carmen's listeners, and I'm happy to give this to you totally for free. That's what a gift is. It's totally for free. There's no selling. And if you like that first idea about how to what to do with your publicity, I've created a special report called 15 Ways to Supersize Your Publicity. And all of these are free. All of these cost nothing. They just take a little bit of time, and I really do mean a little bit of time, maybe 2 minutes apiece, for you to take advantage of social media and regular media on how to maximize your publicity. So if you want my special report on 15 ways to supersize your publicity, simply go to my website, which is prleads.com. That's PR like public relations, leads.com/supersize. Once again, prleads.com/supersize. And that's one word, supersize.
I want to remember our listeners that they can find this link in the email they got with the link to this interview. Just to make it easy, they can just click on it, and you're going to land on Dan's page. Dan, thank you so much for taking the time to share your advice with us. I appreciate it. And to all of my listeners, I encourage them to go and check out your website, check out your work, and I will see everyone in our next episode.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Your Time to Shine with your host, Carmen Ring.